Just first. Pardon? This table's seen better days here.
Multiple.
Yeah.
Are,
Sound.
Good morning, everybody. Are we ready to get rolling?
We are, I think.
Technological wise? Great. I am Chapin Spencer. Welcome, everybody, to our second meeting this morning. We were at the Waterfront Action Group a little earlier on Great Street's Main Street. I'm Chapin Spencer, Director of Public Works. Glad to have everybody here. We are going to do a brief summary of where the project is at since we've had a public meeting. A lot has happened with the project, significantly around the council approval for a smaller phase 1 3-block project. We'll explain kind of the reasons why and give a very brief overview. The bulk of this today is Q&A. So we want to hear what's on your mind and be able to provide answers. So we've got a great city team all throughout here. I think I'll have people introduce themselves when they speak. So we'll just get right into it. Laura Wheelock, Senior Engineer.
I was going to do introductions a different way. So Laura Wheelock, one of the project managers on Main Street, more focused on the roadway side. We also have Olivia DeReese, who hopefully looks familiar. We've been working on the project on the design side for a while. Also here we have Maddie Sender, who's been a little bit more behind the scenes on Main Street, but you'll see her more as we get into construction. And then Martin Lee from our water resources team. His group has been responsible for the ravine sewer design, coordination, the water distribution, the sewer improvements that are happening along the street with and water sewer services, as well as the stormwater infrastructure and treatment detention technologies. We also have the business and workforce development. Cara, do you want to introduce?
Yeah, hi, I'm Cara Elnastrawi, Director of Business and Workforce Development, which includes the Church Street Marketplace, and I have with me Johanna Schneider, who is small, I don't know what your title is.
Small business support specialist.
Cara is also one of those hidden members of our team. Just throughout this phase, I think a lot of you feel very comfortable reaching out to Cara to ask questions, get clarifications. With that, though, as we head into construction, we do want to refocus people's attention on outreach towards EIV Technical Services. We have Natalie Boyle here. She is the city's public outreach consultant for the project. And we also have one of our on-site inspectors, Saban Clark, with EIV Technical Services. The focus here is just Natalie is going to be able to source your question or concern or issue that you're having faster than any one of us here at this corner of the room. She has very quick direct access to the on-site inspection staff. She will be able to understand and will source the question if it needs to come to city staff, if it needs to go to our designer, if it needs to go to the contractor as soon as possible. Natalie, do you want to talk a little bit more about how you do that?
Sure. Do you mind if I just, I don't know if we're recording from there. I don't want to be in the air.
Yeah.
So hi again, Natalie Boyle. I do, will be sending, I'll be coordinating with the city. I'll be coordinating with the engineering staff, the inspection staff. We'll be sending out regular construction updates. I don't know what the frequency of that will be. Maybe it'll be once a week. It'll be more often, of course, if necessary. And as Laura said, I will be your first and best point of contact because I can get concerns and questions out to where they need to go. And quite frankly, if I call someone who's out on site and they see that I'm calling them, they're going to pick up their phone because they recognize the number one, but they also realize that, oh, there's something that needs to, question needs to be answered or there's a situation. And then we'll go from there to address whatever the issue is. Or maybe it's a compliment. We're doing a great job. You never know. I get those sometimes.
Yeah.
And I answer my phone. I return phone calls. If you leave me a voicemail, I return emails. So please don't hesitate. Use me as a resource. That's why I'm here. And going forward, we will, in the process right now, because things are still a little fluid schedule wise, we'll be updating the website. I'll be making sure that there are up to date parking, traffic, pedestrian, those kinds of things throughout the entirety of the project. And what else?
You want to talk about what you have over there?
Yes, I have Oh, so right here, just a quick bullet point. If you want to take this, I have it electronically too. I can send it to you if you'd like. Just really quick general expectations for during construction. Again, some of this is where we're at right now. This is anticipated. Generally, it should be fairly accurate because it is broad enough, but this will give you an idea of where we're at right now. So please feel free to take that with you. The QR code is on there. That goes to the website and also, sorry, didn't mean to speak backwards. Quick sign up sheet, if you want to be included on those construction updates, or if you know anyone who does want to be included on those construction updates, as many emails as you'd like to put on here, or alternatively, you can scan the QR code. Takes you to the project website. If you scroll down, there's a place to subscribe to email updates. My card is also back here. Feel free to take that. You distribute it however you want. I would like my name and contact information to be as widely distributed as possible. We are transitioning some of this outreach. You'll see maybe Maddie or Olivia's name are on some things yet, but that's because we're in the process of transitioning everything over to me. So call me, email me, talk to me, text me, and we'll do our best to serve you as quickly and as efficiently and as accurately as possible. Thank you.
Thanks, Natalie. So super quick, just a reminder of what we're working towards with the Great Streets, which is wider sidewalks, a dedicated bike facility, and rearrangement of on-site parking. Project schedule so far has gone essentially according to plan. We are at the end of 2023 and about to head into construction. The construction timeline does take us through 2026 through all of the different work types. What is different and is what we're going to focus on today, just briefly. So as the city put the project out to bid, our construction pricing came back about 50% over our engineer's estimate. There's a few factors behind this. City staff and several departments worked for weeks trying to figure out additional city revenue that could be used towards this project to close the gap, to try to essentially fund the entirety of the 6-block project that we talked about throughout the design and concept phases. Unfortunately, ultimately, we were still left with a sizable gap that we're not able to overcome at this point in time. And so the choice was to bring the project down in scale, binding the project with a phase 1 that starts at Pine Street and goes through South Winooski. It will do the entirety of each of those 2 intersections in the Great Streets concept, with a transition out into the phase 2 areas to match back up with existing. Also still in the phase 1 area is the Bean Main Street bypass, as we're going to call it, just because it's not going to be a ravine sewer once it's reconstructed. So this will be the bypass pipe. It bypasses the existing ravine sewer that starts at this tiny little dot up here at the fire station and goes down to Maple Street, cross-cutting our city with a really large 160-year-old stacked stone brick structure. And so replacing this infrastructure with a new pipe system that goes in Main Street and comes down Church Street is also within this first phase of the project. We are working on our transitions for phase 2 and an early concept as we work on that coordination. This is the intersection of Pine Street with Main Street. Shows that the bike facility that is within the pedestrian area east of Pine Street will come out into the street, and we are looking at putting dedicated bike lanes on the street between Pine and Battery, and also from Winooski up to Union. So we are still looking at changing the parking configuration on these blocks that are in the phase 2. And adding the continuous bike infrastructure so that the connectivity to the waterfront is there. They can get to the marketplace and all the way up into the Winooski corridor to also have a north-south route.
So are you saying that in phase 1, you're going to do that work in as part of you're going to include some phase 2 work in phase 1?
We are going to keep the rearranged parking that has been through council and commission and stripe on street bike lanes, yes. Only in the phase 2 areas.
So phase two from Pine to Battery is gonna be, is part of phase one.
Yeah, restriped, yes, as part of phase one.
So not achieving the full depth reconstruction is originally achieved, waiting for that full depth reconstruction to occur in the phase two area to a later project. But transitioning any diagonal parking to parallel in that stretch to accommodate on-street bike lanes.
And, when you're done at some point, what's the timing of the phase two portion that you want to have in phase one?
So I'm gonna go back up to the other phasing page. So for phase two, we need to pursue other funding, federal funding, sources such as the grants that are we were successful at getting for like Bank and Cherry or other larger transportation grants to be able to afford phase two. The only benefit to taking this approach that I have come up with, but it's a pretty significant one, is that we're not as bounded as we were with our TIF funding. The downtown TIF required us to stop at Battery Street and it required us to stop at Union Street. Whereas as we put the approach ends of the project under phase two, we can look at adding in the lower section of Main Street where we didn't have that opportunity previously. So this connectivity that's being generated on Main Street, the project can go all the way down to connect to the actual waterfront. Similarly, we can also look at how the bike infrastructure proceeds east out towards South Burlington. It just gives us options that we didn't have with using the downtown TIF funding.
So just, I see that before the whole scope was maybe about 3 years, but now it's still 3 years. But we're doing like half the work, just want to make sure that's correct.
We're doing like 2/3 the work because the ravine sewer is not a small undertaking. So we're doing about 2/3 the work in the most complicated section of the town. The cost savings to take off phase two is $10 million and it costs more than that to do the 3 blocks that are still in the center core. So it's not quite a 1-for-1. I fully understand your point. Originally, the contractor was going to start November 1st of this year. And we get to talk about the schedule. They're tentative to start January. So they've had a small delay on the beginning. They're taking time off the end. So they've lost about 6 months of their schedule based on this change. So work is tentative to start in January of 24. Would proceed all the way through to August of 2026, taking time off in the wintertime. Certainly in the second year, possibly a short break in the first winter season.
And then phase two, are you saying it could be back right after, say, 3 years from now, finish phase one? Now you start phase two and it's gonna be another 3 years?
I don't think that those sections would take 3 years because the ravine sewer is not part of it. Probably 2 years at best, maybe a year and a half.
But that's what you're thinking of right afterwards, so it's a total of like 5, potentially 5 years?
So the city needs to pursue our federal funding. I don't know when phase two would start. If we
See where
were,
I'm going with
I do.
this of like, okay, we're shutting down the main corridor for possibly 5 years, pretty good for business. So I'm just,
no, it's really a great question. And it's something for us to consider as we are pursuing our funding. If we went for a raise grant now, those are very clear. You have to be fully constructed within 5 years. So maybe we're not applying this year because we don't want to start it until 2026 or 27. Or however that works out.
and have you looked at changing phase one to speed up the process and then adding parts of phase, an extra phase when you do the rest of it? So say, instead of an odd looking, you've got a dedicated bike spot for 3 blocks, or is it 3 blocks or 2 blocks? And then you go to in traffic, have you thought of, okay, let's just add that, because you're really theoretically not taking anything, you're not building something and tearing it down. to adding that when you have the money to complete the whole strip, so that's actually more, it flows a little bit better and also might speed. Even if it's a little bit of time, speeds it up a little bit, but gives it a little bit more consistency.
We looked at a lot of different variations of how to choose materials, and limit scope. I'd have to give your question a little bit more thought.
I'm just thinking more of just the flow, it's like when you got. It just, it seemed, you know, I know it's puzzled right now, and so. If we're looking at, and again, you said you don't know when you're gonna start phase two. So. Why wouldn't you do it at the same time, you know, make it simple, you know, right now, businesses need as much support as possible, like, we need to get people downtown, and it's not just. It's not because of this, it's other stuff as well, but it all kind of ties up together, and if. We can make it any somewhat faster, and then, you know, say you put the. Dedicated bike lanes. As a phase two project, because you're just really adding. You're creating, you know, changing up the parking and adding that down. One, it would probably speed up time, and two. Then you know you have enough money to do the whole, you know, your whole thing, and so it stays consistent.
Yep. We can certainly take a look at that. That is creative thinking that I don't think we had
That would
reviewed
be
yet.
where they kind of were talking to us would be, like, we think of certain things that you guys don't think of, you know, so. That's where it'd be great just to get like a. More of a powwow of this stuff, hey, guys, any ideas, like. You know, you guys have an hour, you can come, sit down, discuss some thoughts. Bounce some ideas off of you guys, you know, of us, you of us, we of you, and kind of go from there, that would be. I think people would greatly appreciate that.
Yep.
So noted, we're happy to take time. I think ultimately just how all the interrelated assets play on a corridor. If we did not put the dedicated bike facility in on these 3 blocks for phase one, we still would have to design for it, put in sidewalk. I'm not sure we're gonna save any time
Well, you
in.
technically have to, if you just kept parking, you know, you rip up the street, kept parking the way it is, run, you know, again, all you're doing is adding. Extra. You know, like basically an extra section to block it off, you know, to, when you change it over to direct, horizontal.
Mhm.
You're basically adding a separate section and then that can be laid in. To give you your dedicated bike lane. You know, so you're not ripping it out, you know, adding more sidewalk than ripping it out, you're actually. Keeping it the way, you know, redoing what sidewalks you have right now, or however you do it.
Yeah,
And doing it that way.
it is tricky, just in the sense that there's more than just sidewalk that come into placing the curb line where it is. We have new catch basin design, stormwater infrastructure that ties into that catch basin. And if we did that now and then waited to do the bike infrastructure, those catch basins are in the middle of the street and not necessarily catching the water on the curb. But we can look and see the disconnection of the bike infrastructure has been our largest concern with taking this direction. And we can look to see if there's a
I'm just,
different
Yeah.
way to do it so that it,
I'm worried about like,
fits
even if
better.
you do it, like, then you get somebody who feels comfortable, and then all of a sudden you get a door opening, you're trying to convince more people to go on this spot. So they're going like, oh, I got some security, oh, I go, and then, oh, someone opens the door, cause there is.
Yeah.
You know. Cars turn over quite a bit, you know, but it's 85% they said capacity, so. It means you're worried about more people gonna get the doors, you know, thrown open, you got bigger. Trucks going, but you know, you just have stuff like that, I think it would be prudent to rethink that, maybe bounce some ideas off of us, to see what we think.
Okay.
Perhaps save a little bit of money. For the time, you know, where you can be like, okay, what can we do now? And speed up the process, you know, hopefully. That on top of hopefully the rest of the city gets a little bit better, you know, again, not this stuff, but just in general, which would also help. You know, us merchants out a little bit too.
So one interesting thing about having this much construction activity that we've noticed on other areas, is that there's the behaviors of citizens do change with having the construction present being in an area. And so some of those behavior challenges that you're currently experiencing, for better or for worse, will move somewhere else for 3 years in a substantial way.
Well, I mean, most of it's centered like, you know,
Near the
over
park.
here, or like up on here, and I mean, just even today, I late, cause I had to bring my daughter to the vet. What does my vet say? Oh, yeah, my 2 kids who are 10 and 13 don't wanna come to Burlington. And I was like, well, that means we don't get him in there, and he's got money, which is what we all of us desperately need, to bring in, and it's just. You know, it's just like one thing over another, so if there's ways we can like, okay, let's make it a little bit more streamlined, more effective. Create some stuff, but let's then work on phase 2 and get a more. Achieve a goal that's the same, that's more fluent. It's not broken up or anything like that, would be good.
Okay. So we're essentially at our question and answer phase, having gone through kind of the change in the scope, a little bit about the timeline for starting construction. I do just want to highlight so that we can have questions on everything. Contractor has indicated when they start in January that they would be starting on the lowest section of Church Street between Maple and King. Moving northward as they construct the ravine sewer. So the first activity happening in January is the work down here. Moving up and then eventually reaching Main Street. They may do the work on this one section out here in the parking lot concurrently, but we don't have a finalized schedule in front of us. They are working on trying to make up a little bit of time, work a little bit more efficiently. But this is essentially the part that they'll start with first. While they are on Church Street, because Church Street is a smaller road, the section that they're on will be closed to exclusively local traffic, deliveries and trash and so on and so forth. So
Or between Maple and King,
they are starting between Maple and King, so that's the first section to be closed. Once they finish that work, then they are going to move on to the small section on King Street. That section will be closed. And then they will do between King and Main Street.
And that section will be closed.
That section would be
What do
closed
they say for time frame on that for closure?
4 to 6 weeks per block. We've already met with the Flynn. There's a lot of anxiety over there about how that's going to work, but we are working very closely with their shows and their delivery schedules to make sure that all of their events still happen. Hi.
Why not go the other way around though? From Maine, because we're gonna be all slower in January than we are weeks, months from then. I would really hate to lose all that parking and accessibility, like when we start picking up.
Yeah, it is certainly a tough spot. I'll talk about the parking afterwards, but Martin, do you want to talk about why we start on the bottom of our sewer?
Yeah, it is the typical place to start for sewer line construction, near the bottom. And that way they have the elevations correct. And it's also, I think that the contractor wants to make sure that they're off to a good start. I mean, that's all that we have. I don't think we have any other contract provisions because we didn't know exactly when they were going to start or when they wanted to do this work in the first place. So, I mean, we can certainly relay those concerns.
Is that legal or required? Yeah.
It is
It's, I mean, us dictating how the contractor is going to exactly do their work. I think we need to relay the concerns, but we're not the contractor on the schedule.
Yeah, talking them would be great because that it's a big difference, January and like March, and but additionally, when we're talking about that parking lot, we use that for staff parking. Like so the one that's next to the firehouse, so what's gonna happen, that parking specifically for that time, be good to know.
So while they are doing the ravine sewer through the parking lot at the corner of Main and South Winooski, I don't think that there will be much, if any, public parking available at that lot. The ravine sewer is 25 feet in the ground, and so there is a very large excavation that has to happen to be able to put in both the 48-inch diameter pipe as well as digging 25 feet in the ground. We are displacing the parking for the firefighters, both behind the fire station as well as what happens along the side of the building, and so they get the first available spaces in that lot as our first responders. And then if there are any other available spaces, then that would be what is still publicly available.
Pay for monthly parking, so I would just want to make sure that.
So then you get the second.
Yeah.
You get the second commitment.
We're gonna hear back, actually looking. So that Main Street, we're starting Main Street, let's get that done in January.
We're gonna relay the
Yeah.
concerns to the contractor.
Right, who's working on their,
I hear loud and clear, I understand. My sway is, we'll do what we can.
yep.
There's a question over here.
We found out, or are we able to like offer free parking in city garages, like during this time? Because it's already like difficult to get people to Burlington with crime and then like nowhere to park, like if we're able to be like, you can come on down and free parking in this
Or
garage.
like a voucher,
It's anything.
Yeah.
I think we've talked about a voucher before or something to that nature.
Yeah.
We don't have a free parking program. Giving away parking in the city is,
Oh, at downtown garage, there's still 2-hour free
there's still,
parking.
yes.
But yes, we are looking at parking mitigation strategies, one of which is, we're in active conversations with Courthouse Plaza around opening up their lot, for public parking at our rates, not what's traditionally been, much more of a premium parking experience. So there's 83 spaces in on the lot off of South Champlain, off of South Winooski. And we are working on an agreement, multi-year agreement with them that lot would be fully open to the public at city rates.
I think you were trying to work on that a while ago too. Has it moved at all or has it just been on stalemate?
Yeah, I'll be honest, one of the challenges we've struggled with internally is internal administration capacity. There's open positions within the central administration, particularly in the city attorney's office. So that has progressed. There have been conversations, but I don't have it executed yet. And this is now one of my top priorities to get that executed.
The helpful thing with not starting on Main Street, though, is that the change in the loss of parking for wherever is actively under construction is minimized. Which is helpful as we do have a draft that is about ready to go to Unified Parking Partners, as well as hopefully to the city council shortly thereafter. So it's not been stagnant. We have the draft on our side.
What do you mean by a draft
Of the agreement.
for?
The multi-year agreement with
Okay.
the private property owner
Okay.
to
Yeah.
give access.
You're waiting for a commitment to say it.
They have a verbal commitment with us,
Yeah.
maybe even by email.
Yeah,
So
but
it's,
we have not executed a formal contract that
Okay.
requires them to offer parking at city rates.
Right.
In return for us subsidizing the parking. So we're in financially for tens of thousands of dollars a year in order to open up this parking at city rates, not at premium rates.
so these are all great questions. We'll make sure that we're weighing and providing that other feedback. I guess there's a few others that have yet to ask us any questions, or, certainly happy to take multiple questions from people.
Wanted to return to keep on the topic of parking, but go back to the schedule around phase 2 work that you're proposing to do on the phase 1 timeline.
Yeah.
So, the concern I have is if it's really the topic you were just on, if we take away parking because we want to get the bike infrastructure intact, but there's no connected bike infrastructure, why would I extend into zone to the portion 2 and take away the additional parking when the discussion you just had is that parking is like an endangered species. And given the complexity of this project,
Mhm.
why shoot parking in areas that you're gonna do very little work on?
Mhm.
Meaning complex depth, this kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's going to be changed later. At the same time you're doing phase one. I just don't get it.
So we've worked on this sketch that's here in front of you as a result of feedback as we brought this through the Board of Finance and City Council. So several city councilors were concerned about the connectivity of the bike facilities. We do have a consultant that is going to at least lay this out for us. I heard similar concerns this morning at the Waterfront Action Group about changing and the loss of parking for the bike lanes. We want to at least have an option drawn up, understood its feasibility and its implementation risks. And then we can have the conversation with our community like we always do. Understanding that our long-term goal is the parking configuration reallocation, bike facilities in a safe, low-stress way to connect to the waterfront. That is our transportation master plan for Main Street.
Understood, and that's a hard-won battle, which you already succeeded at. I think the doing a nod to the city council, we're really big on bike infrastructure in a way that defeats the downtown success and appeal at a time where the downtown is under
Mhm.
verifiable threat measured by customer visits in a variety of industries. It's not
Right.
exclusive to me or to Shy Guy or to whatever. It's the downtown is, and it's not your responsibility, but I think things like parking and downtown improvements have got to take into account that, yeah, we'll be done in 5 years, and everything will be cool. We do have a current situation that I think we all have to acknowledge.
Yeah.
And address. And getting a nice bike infrastructure that's done early, that's not connected, is a nod to somebody, but
Mhm.
why? If it's taking away something that someone from outside of town, a visitor, or someone who does shop in Chittenden County and would consider coming to Burlington, but is afraid of garages.
Mhm.
That's not our fault, but it's a reality. So that's.
Yeah.
I think it's
think-
in our Vermont blood, but yes.
Your comments are well taken. I think as Senior Engineer Wheelock said, this is a concept. Does have interest among certain stakeholders, but we are not required to do this. We can have this conversation. I hear loud and clear kind of the contextual concerns that are beyond kind of Public Works' control. But ultimately, we are one community. We need to figure out how to do this project best for everybody. We didn't want to do the phase one, phase two approach, but the financial reality of the timeline for using TIF was very constrained. And if we tried to do the phase one on the backs of property taxpayers, we'd all be experiencing a very large impact in our property tax bill, as me as a homeowner and you all as a business. So got constrained on the front end to have to use TIF quickly. So we're having to do this phase one project without phase two secured, but we are committed to finding phase two. We'll know more about how it either rides on the coattails of phase one, or potentially, we could work with the contractor to extend the current scope if we were able to secure funding soon. All these things need to be worked through. The good news is the contractor, the low bidder, SD Ireland is a contractor we've had success with. They're in the Champlain Parkway right now. They are ahead of schedule on that project. They've been ahead of schedule of other projects that, no guarantees here. But JP, to your point about timeline, you know, our interest is to get this done in advance of their timeline as they've delivered on many other projects in the city.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for that part, I just would hope that we didn't start something in one session just to hope that we can get money for the, you know, to extend it and then like through the project, like, shit, we didn't get enough, we didn't get that money. Well, if we would have known we only got the money, we would have done it this way. It's like, okay, let's just call a spade, like, let's go into it thinking within 6 months, if we can't figure out a way to get that funding, let's just say we're not gonna get that funding till a later date. How do we proceed from here?
So that brings up a great point about the way that the work has been proposed to us with the bid. We talked with everyone. We had the contractors submit their construction schedule and sequencing. So the first work that they indicated they were going to do is the ravine sewer, followed very much thereafter with the underground replacement of the water main, the sewer main, and construction of storm infrastructure. So essentially, what's going to happen this year for construction is the underground utilities portion. Not doing the streetscape improvements until the start of 2025. So both for the plan in front of you about the longer term changes as well as the reorganization and just kind of best choices that are made, we essentially have a year before that infrastructure starts to be constructed.
And then maybe a year, things will be better here, or it could be a shit ton worse, and then I'll be like, well, I'm not gonna even be here to talk to you because I'll be gone, you know? So, but that's just kind of
Understood.
the whole picture, you know?
Yep.
But I get what you're saying, so you have a little bit of time to see because of when they might start with that section.
Correct. And also kind of the surface level changes of the curb line and that work.
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify, so it's any sort of beautification efforts are not happening until 2025.
Correct.
It's gonna be infrastructure.
Correct.
Yeah, underground work has to happen first, starting with the deepest utility first, which is the ravine sewer in most sections.
How long are they expecting that theoretically the ravine sewer system, that section or whole, you know, project gonna take? Is that gonna be like a whole year they're thinking for that one section or that, you know, that ravine sewer?
No, that is a 6 to 7 month process.
Okay.
From the proposal, from what I can recall, and then essentially starting in April, either the water or the sewer line.
Going down Main Street?
Yes, for the other balance of the 2 blocks. In this section here, as they do the ravine sewer, this is replacing the actual sewer on the street. And so as they replace the sewer through here, the laterals that connect into each property connect into the new ravine. So the bypass pipe does become the actual sewer pipe on Main Street in that section.
So after church, so church to St. Paul and so on, when you see stuff to that area happen, is that 2025 you're saying, or now?
On the surface, yes. So they want to do all the underground piping reconfiguration and replacement work in the first season.
Now, is that though, pipe, you know, is that still digging up though the street though?
Mhm.
Okay, that's,
Yeah.
so it's still gonna have work done. And so at some point in this coming year, things are gonna get, you know, parking's gonna get shut down or whichever you're gonna do.
By block,
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
yeah.
And then,
Can I interrupt 1 sec? In the documents, it talked about, you're discussing with ST Ireland. The, being able to close 2 streets and 1 intersection for 4 to 6 or 4 to 8 weeks. So in the case that you were just addressing between, on Main, between Pine and Church, is that gonna happen this year? You're right now proposing that all traffic would cease possibly for 4 to 8 weeks, or I'm not sure exactly what it was.
Yeah.
All through from Pine to Church, for example.
Yes, the conversations that we've had as it relates to the utility work in the street, because some of them are exceptionally deep. They've asked if there is a possibility for closing the intersections to facilitate safer work environments as well as continue to make pedestrian movements through the corridor as continuous as possible and as fluid as possible. City is generally and the administration supportive of pursuing that and hearing out what their proposal is for the traffic control.
So when I couple your response there, and I go back to this earlier conversation, well, we're just doing some infrastructure from Pine to Battery, and so what if we affect that parking? It's compounded above you, above Pine. And that was never contemplated, and I think it should be evaluated. What is the impact of what you're discussing, this 48 weeks, which everybody likes because it's gonna save some money that we spent and lost by having a 50% miscalculation. So some of it, the money has been spent on a mistake. Or a series of 5 or 50. So if I'm adding the loss of parking and appeal of the downtown on these blocks, I would challenge you to say, well, what do we have? What are we offering the visitors and the customers? The local residents?
Yeah, I do want to clarify that the change of the diagonal parking would not happen until the streetscape elements commence. Their contractor has no plan to change the curb line and therefore change the diagonal to parallel until they start the streetscape elements. And so when they come in to work on a block and replace the water main, yeah, the parking is removed so they can complete their work. But when they complete their work and they patch back in the street, the diagonal parking will exist afterwards. And so there is still higher parking capacity through this whole first season until they then start the streetscape work. And as they start the streetscape work, then they build in the curb line, and that is what effectuates the change of diagonal parking.
Except during when that street's under construction. Are we?
Correct.
Correct.
And are we looking at a total of, so for those 3 blocks there, potentially like 12 weeks of closure for, of that section of Main Street?
In different phases. Really, the reason to close the intersection is focused on the intersection and the fact that at all these intersections, these utilities cross each other. And you can't just replace this single section of pipe without doing the appropriate connection into it. Additionally, the manholes are not the smallest in the city because you are closest to the lake. And so they're reasonable sized manhole structures and they do require larger excavations. So.
But theoretically, that could be
that would be really
improve
ambitious.
traffic for potentially 12 weeks. Give or take certain times of the,
I'm gonna go with that's the
Yes.
worst case scenario, but that would be a really ambitious contractor schedule to succeed at being able to move so quickly through the downtown intersection to intersection on that time frame.
So are you saying it's more?
I think that you're gonna have a closure.
Yeah.
You're gonna have it all the way open for a few weeks, and then you're gonna have a closure, and then
Okay.
it's gonna be all the way open for a few weeks.
And then if it's also all the way open, meaning that would actually have parking at that point.
For parts of it, yeah.
Okay,
And then when they're in the middle of the block, they're running traffic by flagger, still two-way, but
but you're not parking on that spot.
possibly, I don't know. It depends on how they sequence their work. The water line is on one side of the road, so that allows for more flexibility on the other side. It's really case by case dependent. What I want to say before I get to your question, though, we don't have that contractor's detailed schedule yet for this specific work area. We will have that in the next coming weeks. The city will be reviewing and approving that document. It is a submittal. They have to have our authorization on their proposed schedule. So having these conversations with everyone is really helpful. What we will have it though is before we hold our neighborhood public construction meeting. So we'll be under construction for part of the ravine sewer, but we're hoping to talk about all Main Street things, the more detailed schedule, what does happen in each part, starting to understand the traffic control plan. We'll have those answers by that point. That meeting is tentative for late January, early February, as we work on our date range. So that's the next significant engagement meeting timeframe. And then hi, let you take your notes.
So I'd like to, if we're able to make requests in this direction, you know, making some sort of requests for when these closures are happening. But for it's not on weekends, you know, like that kind of thing, makes a lot of sense to me. That goes for, we had talked previously about water shutoffs. I'm sure there's gonna be a number of water shutoffs for this. You know, obviously as this budget has changed really, really drastically, I just want to make sure that like we're not losing comms because of that. So like, you know, if Natalie's gonna be our point person for that, that'd be great. To be hearing about this, you know, as well ahead of time as possible, as we discussed. But yeah, like refraining from weekends. Most people are doing most of their business in town. Wise, we're a big part morning shop, but you know, it's like also nighttime is really important too. Knowing when we're gonna have water shutoffs. We have equipment that if it's without water will break. It's very expensive. You know, like we need to know when that's gonna happen. We're also 7 days. So like if we have no water on a Tuesday, that means losing out on wages, we're losing out on sales simultaneously.
Yeah, so the water shut off coordination is a heavy contract requirement.
Sure.
And we have been, you know, Natalie knows we're working on the plan. So I mean, they're gonna have temporary water. That's gonna help to limit disruptions to fire hydrants as well as building connections. To each connection to building, there will be water shutdown needed to do it. And the timing of that is what we'll need to, you know, is it nighttime? Is it, that's the sort of thing that we don't know, but we do have sway over, and we're not gonna allow them to do it at a ridiculous time. Thank people.
So I love that. I mean, like we're a day place that's in between two bars, so looking forward to having that weird fight.
I mean, yeah, 'cause we've done even next week, we're doing something downtown. And it's, and I'm not saying this is not one size fit all, but we've done like midnight to 6 AM and, you know, I think it works. It's kind of the middle of two competing interests time. So, you know, like that window, but it's gonna be variable because we'll have to see what works for the project and maybe a given block. You know, one block's different than another.
Right, and we recognize that, you know, that type of a compromise shaves a little bit of the time off of the bars that are in this area where the shut off is happening, but it also delays the opening of the earlier breakfast business that is also in this corridor. So it's the compromise, but it doesn't impact just one exclusively.
If we're talking about like having these kind of conversations with the contractor.
Yeah.
Since we've had such a drastic change in scope, I just want to make sure the stuff that we spoke about, you know, one-on-one earlier is still to be happening specifically, at least to Collins.
Yep.
And then the other question that I have is about sidewalk access, you know, like parking, you know, obviously a lot that was talked about parking. But we have a lot of foot traffic for our place, and I still want to make sure that like we look good from across the street. You know, like we're from New York originally, like scaffolding will literally kill a business. I've seen it happen a dozen times. But it doesn't seem like this is like a scaffolding thing, I mean, facades, but you know, I don't necessarily want like a dozer parked right in front of us for a month. So again, just bringing this up now so that, you know, we have to have this conversation in the future, it's not a surprise to anybody. You know, frontage is important, you know, looking inviting is important, not having jackhammers right outside of our place is important. And at the very least, knowing when it's gonna happen, so you can let our staff know and act accordingly. So
Yeah.
Those are just a couple of concerns that we have as we're going into this, especially if this is now gonna be happening more towards spring. And it's not gonna be a beautification thing for another year, so it's gonna be like a year. I would make ugly manageable.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely jump on the sidewalk thing, because when the Vermont House did construction like a couple of years ago, I used to smoke cigarettes, then I literally would watch my customers be like. Just walk away, they'll go to the next pet shop or dispensary or whatever, you know, so like, yeah, just accessibility for sidewalk is definitely my big concern.
Yeah.
Just out of, is it, so we're thinking 1 year under the ground and 2 years of beautification, is that,
A year and a half of the beautification, yeah.
okay,
That is definitely the 25 to 26 year is the year that they can't work over the winter, and they can't even push the winter season very much, just because you're working on finishes that are sensitive to cold, snow. Plants don't survive in that time frame, so you can't really plant anything in your planter boxes. So it's the winter from 25 to 26 where they will have a really sizable shutdown. The first one from 24 to 25 is where they are working underground, and maybe in that dead of winter, January to mid-February, might not be able to do water work or other work. It depends on what they're doing.
so you, but, so did you say they're gonna be shut down more in the winter of 25 to 26?
Correct, yeah.
Okay,
Very noticeable. They'll stop construction.
oh, that will stop, okay, I thought you meant the actual, that's where more of the work will, now it's like, wait, that
No,
sounds like
no,
the
no, no,
opposite of what you
sorry.
said.
There'll be a construction pause
Yeah.
Okay, so
that way.
at that point, we'll see a greater impact during more busier time for traffic, I guess. Because it's gonna be the warmer time of year where there's more people out and about, it sounds like.
Yep.
Yes,
I would think so. Just because that's when they're gonna start doing the curb line changes and adding in the subsurface tree infrastructure, those that support the tree growth. Those are sidewalk activities, as well as they will likely be doing road subbase. So that's similar to St. Paul Street, where you're gonna take out all of the first top 2 feet of material and replace that with new stone, those kinds of things.
For that shutdown, winter time, what kind of schedule, would that be like a now-ish thing where they would stop, or would they be stopping for it's like November? Or do we know,
My guess is they'd probably stop before Thanksgiving.
and as far as like stopping, they're gonna close everything up, right, you know, we're not gonna have stuff out all winter.
Yep, so yeah, they would unmobilize their equipment, and move that off-site. The surfaces, we have in our contract provisions that they wouldn't be able to leave dirt surfaces. So they may not be concrete, but they would be asphalt, surfaces over that shutdown. Yes,
We discussed overnight work as a means to minimize the effect to the downtown. How much does that play into this underground work?
night work is tricky. There are challenges as it relates to utility coordination. Those utilities often can't work both day and night. I'm gonna use our water department as an example. You know, it's a small group of 3 to 4 on a good day. For the staff that maintain the water systems distribution, and we can't have people on call during the day to serve the city and reserve the people at night that have to help support the construction crew. And so it is really challenging to do substantial night work. And that's just one of a few systems where it requires people in different places. Overnight, there are also a reasonable number of residents above a lot of these businesses, and so there is significant noise disruption that would happen to do that during the overnight hours. And for whatever the effect is, and I'm not gonna get the right term, the construction noise is louder at night than it is during the day. And it has something to do with the ambiance, and not having other noise to like conflict the construction noise, and so it spreads further. So it's not just the people who live on Main Street. You're gonna hear this for a sizable way up the hill. And so we did look at it. There's probably a few operations that'll happen at night, but in general, it's daytime work. But to speak to one of the other questions, we can confirm that when they do shut the intersection down, it would reopen during the days of the weekend. And I say that in the sense that our construction schedule limits them to working Monday through Friday exclusively. They have to have special permission to work on the weekends. The whole idea is that there may be a stray excavator around, but essentially they're not here disrupting, causing noise, dust and whatnot on the weekends.
And then with that, so then whichever block that's getting worked on, that would be fully or at least mostly open then for parking as well as traffic going through?
Over the weekend, I would think so. That's what the goal is, really, to allow the downtown to function more as normal on the weekends,
So
which is also
they
when
are
there's a lot
doing-
of events.
If they're doing a lot of utility work, they may be in a position where, given the utilities location in the street, that we may not be able to restore all parking over the weekend. So I think, yes, we are gonna. I'm hearing the message loud and clear that any opportunity there is to reopen the parking, that we should be pushing for that. But there are some times when that may not be possible.
Man, sorry. I know that there are, like, specific holiday weekends, like, but there are weekends where it's like, oh, wow, that was a banger of a weekend because it was Martin Luther King Day or whatever. And I just want, again, just making it a note, if we could talk with the contractors about, like, here are the holidays, or here are the days where historically Burlington has been busier. Don't schedule that work on those days. I'm happy to share, some of our data in terms of, like, historically what's been better than worse. There isn't a city calendar that I'm aware of for big events. It's a separate thing that I would love to see.
We can do
Can you share that?
for events in the city.
Yeah.
We have two, one on the marketplace and one on loveburlington.org.
That one I've seen, but I've used like a CSV or something, so it's something I can just import into our calendar. That's possible. This is a totally separate thing, and I'm so far
Yeah.
doing something, right?
Yeah, no, let me,
So that would be really cool, because it's like every once in a while we'll get surprised by the marathon. And it'll be like, oh.
so we also send out a digital, like a PDF at the beginning of the year. Sometimes it doesn't come out till the beginning of February, which is just like, this is when UVM graduation is, this is when Champlain graduation
I don't
is.
think we've received that. I might not be on the email
Okay.
list for that.
Okay.
Can I sign up?
Yes.
Yeah.
I am sorry. I'll check we use MailChimp, so I'll check what's happening there. It's MailChimp often lands in spam, so let me double check.
Yeah, so then if there is any other way that we can communicate.
Of
so I
course.
have to check.
Yeah, that's something I even inherited. My department's been doing that for like 20 years, so I'll check on that.
Yeah, and again, I've been to work with you with our historic data, because we take notes on, like, oh, it was the marathon in particular.
Yes.
Is a thing.
Of course,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
So we do have all of the state and city holidays listed in the contract as holidays that they can't work. We follow the state's guidelines that essentially contractor has to be done at noon the day before a holiday. Are not allowed to work on the holiday and cannot resume work until 7 a.m. the day after a holiday, depending on how a weekend works out in there. We did also add in a few other kind of niche event days. So the solar eclipse has been added into their contract as a calendar. We did put July 3rd specifically. So actually, I think July 2nd is their like noon cutoff day. Juneteenth was added, marathon. We do have note in there, I think, of graduation and move-in. And I do think we noted Jazz Fest,
Festival of Fools.
as other kind of momentous kind of weekends. And so, the cleanup and the care that's taken ahead of those.
great.
But if there are others, I was just in front of the Waterfront Action Group and, you know, they probably host other events, but it trickles out to the rest of the city, both in how transportation happens to get to those types of events as well as where people go after the event is done. They're gonna send us a list of things that they have planned. If you're hosting a business event or something to celebrate your business, we want to understand that. Because to your point, we don't want the jackhammering to be happening that day. Nectar's has it's like 50th, what's their event in September this year? They have some sort of celebration. I can't remember the number.
Is it this year? I think it's like 2025.
I thought it was this year. Anyway, we've have that one written down. But they've noted, you know, this is gonna be way different than standard operating day because of what they're doing. So we want to understand those as well.
It sounds like some excellent effort is going into understanding those. I would love it if we could not assume that everybody knows what your calendar is and what it's called. That one, well, we've done that for 20 years. Nothing, yeah.
The calendar can be imported. Natalie is also our website coordinator now. And if that's something that we can collect into our business toolkit that we're working on, just to kind of confirm, you know.
Where's the calendar? How do we get it? How do we get it to our
Yeah.
customers?
Yeah.
Yep.
Put it on our website.
Right.
And also, I think, when we get that up, and it's a great idea. If you notice something like, oh, my big event isn't on there and it's going to be Nectar's 50th, you know, anniversary party, and we know it's gonna be huge, then that's a great thing to reach out to me on, and we can start to get that coordinated. And maybe it only affects, you know, down by, what is Nectar's, by South Winooski, right? Down in that corner? Yeah. But still, it's good for everyone to have all of those things, not just us on the contractor side and the inspection side, the engineering side, but that's a great idea.
And then,
I think just one comment on that.
Yeah.
It's not, there is spillover to general communication to everybody. There was just not, oh, to do with contracting stuff, we're giving this notice, but it's general information that can be digested and useful for someone who's interested in Burlington.
Mhm.
Or I'm going to the waterfront, what's going on? So
Mhm.
it's not just, don't read this unless you're interested in construction.
Sure. Right.
Right. understood.
Yep. So that's a great point and comment, Zandy. Natalie has been tasked with helping develop different materials. They are because of construction, so that we can pay for them with our funding, as it relates to helping to highlight parking locations, depending on what the traffic control or the construction is specifically happening. You know, if people are always used to coming into Main Street and turning, Church Street right now, that's gonna be really challenging. And so she's gonna be creating a document that's gonna say, you know, this is how you get to other parking resources. This is what's happening with the traffic control. You know, for an event weekend, you know, if you were looking to get to the Jazz Fest, know that Main Street in these 2 blocks is having water work done. Please allow extra time. Please park at these other very still proximate resources, that kind of stuff.
Have you thought about how you're gonna, like, what your route is gonna be during, say, that top section is gonna might get closed up? Do you have an idea of how you're gonna start routing people?
College Street is a
Okay,
very likely candidate.
okay.
Potentially Maple Street a little bit as well, depending on where people are coming in from. What makes the most sense? If they're already coming in from the south, we may want them to use Maple Street to kind of bypass something first. If they're coming down Main Street, I think hopping onto College is gonna be a primary bypass that happens.
And then the other question is, have you reached out to like, so like, I know like you've reached out to people like on Main Street stuff, but because it's a main corridor with traffic, have you reached out to send these same updates to people on Church Street, businesses and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Yes, Kara has helped fill
Sorry,
in
I think to
our,
Jump in,
yeah.
yeah, we have, because I have concerns, about that as well, that there's a lot of stores that depend on traffic coming from the south, way beyond Main Street, once they cross Main Street, they're still headed to a destination on College or Bank.
So they get the same emails of going to the meetings and stuff like that as well? Okay.
And in addition, just to jump in, I have applied for a grant from the state of Vermont. And was awarded the grant. We don't have the funds yet, but, and those funds can go towards marketing. So the application for that grant was to do real public marketing around, we're still open for business, we're still that sort of stuff. That amplifies the marketing budget I have beyond, I have a very small marketing budget paid for by taxpayer dollars. So this will be able to augment our marketing, and make it more project specific, and allowing people to know the best way to come in or not to come in, or we're still open for business type of stuff.
What about signage throughout the city?
We have talked about that internally, and we're looking for sources of funding for that. There's obviously signage that naturally comes with a construction site, and yeah, but I had been, in another city, and then I did a deep dive on the internet. There's some very cute sort of snarky signage that people put up for construction. And I can't think of one right now, but.
oh, I like my trench example, if you want to understand the Mariana Main Street trench.
Yeah.
Follow
Oh,
this
right, we
QR
talked about
code.
the Mariana Trench, and so things like that to engage people when they're in their car or when they're on foot. So it's something beyond like, please pardon our appearance, but something more funny. And
Like
to
the beach
try and make it
dance
very
message
sort of grassroots, very Burlington. So again, some of these marketing dollars from the grant from the state would hopefully try and augment some of that.
I mean, more just about routing people throughout the city, so they're not only seeing big orange signs, and I can appreciate the humor, but something.
I understand, okay.
Inviting for flow of traffic, et cetera, so it doesn't feel like a burden when you encounter it, or like an additional task, like scanning a QR code. It's something as simple as just like directing traffic to a parking lot.
Yeah, parking's in this, parking's over here,
Absolutely, and that goes along
Right.
with those
Yep.
funds from the state.
And one last comment is that all of our employees could be excellent amplifiers of accurate information.
Mhm.
And I am confident that at least 2/3 of our employees don't know what's happening. Because they're very focused on how they did it, or their secret spot, or their way in. And if we could think about how to assist our businesses in educating and the importance of educating our staff.
Mhm.
That can be a whole army of people that could amplify correct messages.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to do that, but it's an opportunity.
Zandy, do you guys have, and I'm gonna pick on your business, do you have like a morning meeting? Where maybe, we could come in and for 10 minutes, just kind of brief you and your staff on the project?
You could, the morning meeting exists, but it might hit 30%
Right.
Right,
of the
You could
people.
come in a couple
Or-
times too to,
And the person
hit
comes in
everyone.
tomorrow, or
Yeah.
if there's a shift
Right.
change and people
Right.
from the morning don't know what the.
Mhm.
but I'm just
Happen-
wondering, like, do you have those kind of, or like, where more staff kind of gather?
I think we could.
Like, yes, I do. Come see me tomorrow.
We could even just skip the staff, y'all produce the articles. Stamp the article, don't have to pay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Seriously,
Yeah.
right, like, or like that we have on our website.
Yeah.
It's like, there's construction happening, here are the details, and then have like the dumbest version of whatever's happening, like today and through the end of the month. And it's like,
Right.
not like emails you send us, where it's like really dense descriptions, it's like just, here's your bullet points, and it's like they
Yeah.
make that as easy to access, because then it's like, as much as I appreciate and understand like having the, you know, because I like the idea of our staff being able to say like, here's what's going on, but I hate the idea of having to train them on it or schedule time with you. I'd much rather just have them be able to point at it.
Mhm.
We also love that because we have tons of, you know, customers.
Right.
Try to get,
Yeah.
so, and that are curious, see, they walk in, what's going on?
Or even just be able to say before then, it's like, yo, look at
That could
this.
be an easy lift.
Before
Yeah.
the season starts.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I
Yeah.
think that could be an easy lift and having previously owned a small business, I know that communicating to staff and having staff accurately communicate that outwardly is, you know, it's like a game of telephone. So yeah,
Okay.
I think that could work.
I'm
Yeah.
also thinking like in terms of social media, I know like most businesses have like an Instagram or something, and our plan is to hopefully use our own Instagram as a way to communicate project updates, but if it's something like either you guys like shared like something unique about construction or just shared like a DPW post about what's going on, like whoever's like managing our social media could maybe like, you know, DM you like a post or something, hey, if you want to share this to your client base, like, so they know, like, that might be helpful.
Tag everybody in,
Yep,
just do a story and then we just
Yeah.
post that story.
Right.
yep. I think that would be
Yeah.
helpful.
Okay.
And I think Love Burlington can be, you know, Love Burlington is a marketing machine, so you don't want to use it entirely for construction updates. Because you change the voice and
Yep.
as people who build their Instagrams know there's a voice, but we can do stories as well and tag and have a broader reach to, we have a younger audience there as well.
Right, I do want to echo, you know, we've talked with other communities that have redone their downtown. We've talked with Barry, we've talked with Middlebury, and we've talked with Waterbury. And their message as it relates to, yes, construction's uncomfortable, but what makes the communities survive is not negatively talking about it to everybody. And so I do think that it's important to Zandy's point is making sure that the staff at least is a neutral conversation. Be like, oh my God, today I couldn't find this parking spot and this is the worst day of my life and I tripped over the sidewalk panel. I hate my job here because of this construction. Like, that's not the message we want to have. And if that's the day your employee has, please tell me, because that something went wrong. But you know, we want them to be like, yeah, it's frustrating, but you know, here's these resources. I found, you know, this really cool new parking area because of it, and, or, you know, little positive touches. The other message was there was a few really anchor businesses within the community and they helped to boost the smaller businesses. You know, it is places like the Flynn or the Ski Rack or North Star that are icons in my brain as a Vermonter living outside of this community, that I know where they are. They are my geographic references. And I think about that as I think about the downtown as a local Vermonter. And it's knowing these places that I trust, I'll be right there with you, that they're saying, this is hard for me, but I'm here and I'm here with my neighbors. So that's what I heard.
I just want to say, I think that's really, really great. And it's great perspective. And I know that we're happy to do that with our staff and kind of emphasize that. But I don't know how much time there is available for this. You know, we're talking about like coming in for a morning meeting or something like that. Like, if my staff knows who you guys are and they know to be excited about this, that, or the other, like we do have some public servants that come in that our staff know, and it humanizes them, it makes them into a person.
Right.
You know, like if you guys are coming in and picking up lunch and talking with our staff, and they know who you are, it's like, I'm the person that's doing all of this to you, and I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
But like, here's the long term. It's like, me and my brother, we can do long term. Long term makes sense to us, it makes less sense to some of our staff. You know, they're not as committed to it, but if they know the person behind it, it's just gonna make that kind of messaging a lot easier. And again, I don't know what kind of you have available. There's a lot of businesses on Main Street.
I go up and down the Champlain Parkway pretty much every week and make sure I introduce myself because they need to know. And if there's a problem, they know how to reach me.
Yeah, that'd be great. We do our management meetings on Fridays. If you guys ever want to schedule some time, meet our people, yeah, we'd like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love the idea of not treating this like the boogeyman, ever.
Right.
Like, this is.
Yeah.
A good thing. I know you're dealing with small businesses that are gonna be negatively impacted by it, so the energy might not be super positive. But if that's how we're facing towards people, that's
Right.
gonna turn everyone off. Yeah.
So I'm super happy you brought that up.
Right. Yeah.
Because it's like, you kind of need that reminder, for time like this, so
Yep.
however we can
Right.
include that in the
Yeah.
Instagram posts and what have you about like, this sucks right now, but look what it's gonna look like later. My spot, now we're on the fight on
Yeah.
Right.
it, you know, it's like make it into a little bit of a, you know, not necessarily like a lighthearted thing, because there are still gonna be people that are frustrated. And when you're frustrated and someone's trying to do something lighthearted, it's incredibly more frustrating. But humanizing it, I love that.
Great.
Yeah. So we have about 10 minutes left before some staff have another commitment. Is there any last questions that you guys have?
So on these 3 blocks that are phase 1, will any one block finish sooner than the other blocks? I mean, or is it just gonna be pretty much the continuous overall work over 3 blocks?
I don't know that at this point in time. My hunch is that one might finish a few months ahead of the other, but I do suspect that, you know, you're gonna see kind of sequential progress of all of them. I think the streetscape will not be complete at the start of 26, and all 3 blocks would be complete at the end of 26, so.
We don't have to like touch this side of this block, right? Because we just did the whole park.
We
here.
do, because we need to put some large stormwater tanks underneath it to help with our capacity problems, challenges.
But part of the message here is this project needs to celebrate its protecting the lake. And I think that's something we can all agree and celebrate. And to the extent that the top line messages are, we're creating better public space. We're protecting the lake. I hope that we can create the enthusiasm for at least the end result, if not the interim.
I think it's also important to remember, which the DPW staff had told me, that even if we didn't do this Great Streets project, the utilities underneath need to be addressed.
Did people see what happened Sunday on Main Street? We had, 10 feet of sewer line disappear. We don't know where it went. Right outside of Memorial Auditorium, we had an emergency repair. This is one of the sections that will get fixed as part of Great Streets Main Street. So,
So you're gonna have disruption anyway, so we have to dig it up. And Laura had even told me that they think they might find underneath water mains made of timber. From,
I don't think those are still in use, but we will find the
Yes.
old water.
They-
timber main.
abandoned.
but,
Yeah.
and
See an
water
example
mains
at
made of
DPW.
clay and things that, like,
Yeah.
it has to be ripped up anyway. And so if we do it, and I know that might be a little less disruptive than this, but the end result, you know, when I had been approached like, you know, let's not do this at all, it doesn't need to be more beautiful, it's like, well, it still has to be ripped up regardless, like, we still have to deal with the 200-year-old infrastructure underneath.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to, it's like, this is fun for me, because it's like, you could just play this as self-deprecating, it's like, look at how old all of this shit is.
And share like photos of
I definitely share photos.
eroding.
Like, that is hilariously old, that is so old, and you play into how it's one of the
Yeah.
oldest sounds of the it's like, this could be fun.
It could be a history lesson, right? Like,
It's got,
Yeah.
about like, you should hear about this clay line that's under Main Street, you
Right.
know, it's like.
Yeah.
Just leave.
I thought it
I
was.
think everybody's
Yeah.
good and has been good with the infrastructure stuff. I think it's just
Mhm.
the making the longevity, how it's done and
Yeah,
is the big problem. Like, just everybody knows stormwater is an issue.
sure.
Sidewalks have to get, they've, except for the park by the park, but, some stuff is just making sure it's done.
Yeah.
Cohesive manner.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm kind of questioning right now on some of the redesigning, but not the beautiful, obviously trees look great. I hope it's stuff that people get to use, rather than Park looks great, but let's be honest, like. Unfortunately, it's not getting, it's not getting the use that I think it really intended for, so just stuff like that, it's my
Yeah.
thought.
I wanna go back and just underline what you just said. I don't think we tell the story anywhere near well enough about what the positive is.
Yeah,
I think taking pictures
right.
and if you have a conversation about a ravine sewer that's stacked block and
Right.
it's down so far and there's actually some pictures.
It's kind
you
of cool,
change
actually.
the
to see the
conversation.
pictures.
Right,
Yeah, the historic drawing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Right.
like a calico down there. It's very.
filled with poop.
And it's.
Catacombs are filled with poop, just usually by bats.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
good
no, I
point,
agree.
Sam.
We should tell it. I-
Yeah.
and,
That's a good
there's some
reminder.
goodness and
Right.
it's not overdone. It's not.
Yeah.
Right,
I think we've been so
I think-
focused on like the construction, like how we get through this, that we kind of forgot to like, keep telling that story too. It's like-
yeah,
And we were a lot in the beginning,
Yeah.
I mean, I think, but as we've gotten closer to construction.
good
Yeah.
point.
Well, I think the scope's gotten bigger, a lot of it was like addressing that infrastructure part, which is desperately needed, and then now it's. Everything's added different stuff to it, so then the project's changed, a little bit and stuff too.
I'm happy to stay around for a little bit too and do one-on-ones. Are there any final comments? In terms of next steps, we have a public meeting that will be rebroadcast for January, once we have the contractor schedule, right?
EIB Tech, is it possible, Natalie, to get a greatstreetsburlington.com email address or something like that?
So we went back and forth on that. We've had project specific ones on the Shelburne Street Roundabout and the Champlain Parkway. And we find that people who don't use it often are nervous about using one to know with their urgent issue or significant comment that it's going to be addressed in a timely way. So we've actually currently made the conscious choice to use Natalie's very specific, you are getting a human and not some mail service email at this point.
And in terms of.
But if that
using-
changes, and
It just feels like I'm not talking to a person that works for the city, yes.
yeah,
Talk more about the domain.
Just
yeah,
the email address, right, yeah, just for those.
yep.
Okay,
I think in terms of that, the purpose of using now, she's gonna be able to respond more efficiently, more accurately than I think any of us. I mean, if you email one of us, like, it might
Yeah.
take longer for us to, Natalie can kind of like funnel and triage stuff through the people that she needs to. at
What
the
if it
city.
said great streets at EIB Tech? Would that feel better?
No, yeah. it's the domain, not the-
Yeah.
they want to feel like you're reaching the city.
Do you want
Yeah,
a
so
city
it's like
email address?
receiving
No, that doesn't
emails.
work. It doesn't? I don't think you can give an email address to an outside company.
We can
Maybe a
explore
seasonal staff.
options.
Yeah.
We can look at that one.
Yeah,
Yeah, just talking to those,
Yeah.
it feels weird.
okay,
That's fair.
She definitely offered, but we've put that on hold for right now.
And of course, if that changes, it's an easy enough change to make, right?
Yeah.
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 I want to thank everybody for coming out for this. I'll stay around, and this is obviously not the end of the conversation. This is going to be a multi-year project that we all, I think, recognize despite the challenges, see the many assets of this. We're going to be around through the thick of it to make sure that we deliver it as smartly as possible. Thank you so much, and look forward to the conversation ongoing. Thank
Yep.
you.
Thank you.